Hey there, Kingdom Dream Chasers. It's Gail Root here, talking about a very uncomfortable conversation topic. We're not going to talk about this very long because it will be uncomfortable, but I think it is so incredibly necessary. It certainly is in my life and business, especially my life as a believer, wanting to grow in my spiritual maturing process, and in my maturing process as a businesswoman. And they're intimately linked for me. And so, what we're talking about today is failure. Okay. We're talking about failure. And I want to kick it off by I literally did a Google, and you can just quickly do a Google search. Give me, I think I said, here, I'll tell you exactly what my search was, quotes on failure from famous people. All right. Now, some of these you've heard, but what I just want you to just let these words wash over you. And I just want you to hear the nugget inside each one of them. All right. And then we'll talk at the end about what that nugget is. So, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. Henry Ford. Success is not final. Failure is fit. Wait. So yeah, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. With Winston Churchill. Forgive me for messing that up. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Thomas Edison. Failure is the condiment that gives success its flavor. Truman Capote. You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you. Barack Obama. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Stephen McCraney. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Ariana Huffington. Everything you want is on the other side of fear or then failure. Because really, Jack Canfield, what is really happening at the core of failure, fear of failure, is fear that other people are going, because if you could fail in your own little bubble, you would be disappointing yourself. But usually, most of us are afraid of disappointing those around us, being embarrassed or having let them down. And so we don't start, we don't enter in, we don't do the post because we're afraid of what people will think or afraid of it won't get likes or engagement. And then that will reflect on me as a failure. I won't start the Facebook group because maybe no one will come in. Maybe I won't grow it, and maybe I'll look like a failure. I will have failed. Let's go on a little bit more. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Robert F. Kennedy. I have failed. I love this one. I have failed over and over again in my life, and that's precisely why I succeed. Michael Jordan. It's hard to fail, but it's worse never to have tried to succeed. Theodore Roosevelt. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. Samuel Beckett. Don't fear failure, fear average. Kevin Kelly. Giving up is the only sure way to fail. Gina Showalter. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. Ken Robinson. And lastly, failure is not an option. It's if things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. Elon Musk. And so what I was overwhelmed with, just as I allowed all those words to wash over me the first time I read through them, was the confidence of the quote. Because what the author of the quote was talking about was failure. What they were acknowledging is they themselves had failed many, many, many times. I mean, Thomas Edison, 10,000 times I proved, something wasn't working. But he looked at that as success. And what I want you to hear today, if you don't hear anything else, is this. You know, for me personally, Jesus is right there, just waiting for us to see the nugget that he has for us in the quote unquote failure, because there's a gift in that nugget. God is using that nugget to help grow us and prepare us for the next thing. But when fear tells us, don't even look this in the, number one, don't even try it. Or number two, when I fail at something, I don't want to confront. I don't want to look failure in the eye. And if I don't look failure in the eye and get deeply honest about what part I played, what I need to do differently, how I want to change this for the next time, guess what happens? I repeat the same things over and over and over again. And there's Jesus, just patiently waiting for us, standing by, sitting there waiting for us to finally see the nugget that he has for us in that failure so that we can grow. Because if I don't grasp what I've been trying, what God's trying to show me, I'm just going to have to keep repeating it over and over again. And boy, can that be painful. It can be painful in a marriage. It can be painful in any relationship, in business. If I don't confront the components that help me arrive at that failure, I'm not going to be able to change it. And so there's a beauty in the fall. And I'm not talking about the fall of man in Genesis. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our stumbles, our falls, when we fall down and skin our knees, when we try something, we bite off maybe more than we could chew. We try something and it doesn't go the way we wanted it to. Rather than ignoring it and just moving on, trust that God has something very intentional in that fall. You didn't just fall and then we just wipe it away. There is something incredible to learn in the stumble, in the skin knee, in the fall, in the broken heart, in the hurt. There's something incredible to learn there. And if we will embrace that, we will start to embrace failure. And what does Paul tell us? He didn't want that. We don't get to know what was the thorn in Paul's side. We can make guesses, all kinds of things. I don't think it literally was a physical thorn in his side. I bet you don't think it either. But Paul clearly was telling us something was going on and it was painful and it was continuing. But what he was telling us was it was teaching him. He was making peace with it. And I like to think of what Paul was really making peace with was we're going to have failures, we're going to have pain, we're going to have disappointments, and we are going to disappoint ourselves. But you know what? If we stop looking at those things as failures to be embarrassed about, and take on what these beautiful men and women just quoted to us and hear the confidence in they wouldn't have success if it wasn't for the failures. They wouldn't have invented this or that if it wasn't for the failures. And what did Winston Churchill say? It takes courage to get back up and keep going. And that's really as I'm wrapping up, that is the kernel of really what I was taught and believed was just kind of get back up and keep going. But really, what I've discovered now at this stage of my life is there was a lot of self-will in that. There was a lot of just self grit and determination. And I'm not saying that I'm not grateful for some of those skills that and internal things God's given me, but I don't want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to just do it with grit anymore. I want to learn from when I fall. So when I get back up with courage, I'm walking with God, knowing that He just gave me the reason why I failed was for my good. It was to teach me something significant so that I would be in a whole new place moving on from there. And, embracing, as one of our celebrity quotes said, embracing the truth that there is no success without failure. Name one person that just sets it out and just completely has no failure and just achieves. There's nothing but success. Well, it might look like that from the outside, but we all know whenever we hear those interviews, you think, oh, look at that rising star, and they just kept on rising and there were no failures. Well, then you peel back the curtain and the interviewer gets to the heart of the matter if they're willing to disclose it, and you hear all of the difficult things that they had to go to get to where they were. And so, you know, I want to embrace the moments when I fall, when I have a failure, when something doesn't go the way I hoped. I want to and say, Lord, this is uncomfortable. This is kind of painful. I didn't want it to go this way. Clearly, Lord, you know it. I didn't want it to go this way. But I believe far bigger than that disappointment is the good that you have planned for me to learn in this moment. So I'm not going to brush it aside. I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to look it square in the eye and see, okay, what's my role in it? And what could I have done differently? Not what could I hide? Not what could I sweep away? Not what I could numb myself to and move on. No, square. with courage, look at it with a depth of honesty that only He can help me with. And Lord, peel this back, show me, because when I leave this place, I want to have grown from this experience and changed from this experience. I want my relationships to be different after this. I want my heart to be different. I want my ability to forgive. I want my ability to serve to be different because of what I just went through. I want to have greater compassion for others. I want to be willing to be less concerned about what I want and where can I be a loving light of hope and representation of who you are, Lord. So, as a retired perfectionist um, and as a recovering busy addict, those were just symptoms of my fear of failure. And so confronting this and coming, it's so much more than just confronting, it's coming to peace with it, like Paul did, and accepting that this is a part of my life and God wants it to be because He's teaching me in these moments. Not that we don't get, it's like, Lord, well, He doesn't just, it's not like we can say, Lord, I only want to grow and learn through the successful moments. No, it doesn't work that way, right? And as one of those quotes, let me see if I can find it really fast. Um, short way to fail, hard to immerse and succeed. Um, Failure, opposite of success, master. Hold on, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Yeah, and it might just be this one. Failure is the condiment that gives success its flavor. And I love that because what I'm hearing Truman Capote say there in that quote is that without the failures, what does success really feel like? And you might be like, well, girl, I'll take success without failures all day long. Well, really? Because think about anything in your past where there's been a success, a win. It's because you had to work hard at it, right? You had to fall some, you had to stumble some, you had to pick yourself back up again. You had to walk with the Lord. You had to find courage that was not your own, strength that was not your own. You had to forgive people who you thought you would never forgive. You had to forgive hurts you thought you would never forgive. And that success on the other side of that was so incredibly sweet because of the pain, because of the fall that you had gone through, the failure, the hurt. And so embrace fear, embrace failure. Fear is the core of what's underneath the fear of failing. And the more Christian businesswomen that I work with, the faster we get to this place of saying, come on, failure, bring it on. I'm not giving up. I'm just gonna look at it and say, okay, what worked well here and what would I do differently next time? All right. Because clearly I'm going to not ever do it perfectly. So what will I do differently next time? And then I'm learning from this and then I'm going to move on. And Lord, then, show me, convict, help me see the truth. Because I don't want this to come around again. Right? I don't want this lesson to come around again. I want to learn it so I can grow and move on to the next lesson that you have for me. All right, guys, have a beautiful day. Remember, failure is our friend. It is our teacher. It is what grows us, helps us transform spiritually. It grows us in our business. It matures us. And it is a blessing because it's the path to success.